Mhm.
When you
Yeah.
were when you first started hearing angels, you said you were how old?
Well, I was born with it. I
Oh,
always
what
knew
was
the
it like?
angels.
I mean, that is I've never talked to anybody who actually heard angels as a baby. I mean, some of us may be hearing, but we don't know what we're hearing. Welcome back to all my Courage, Confidence, and Connections podcast fans. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Janice Debo, your host, and my guest today is Reverend Sheila Tillich. Did I say that right?
Oh, pretty close. That's okay. It's
Okay,
Tillich, but that's all right.
Tillich.
It
Oh,
looks like Tillish, so everybody does that.
okay.
It's
Well,
good.
good, good. Well, we're not going to be too formal here. We're first names only anyway.
That's
So,
all right.
welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I see
Thank you for having me.
our color schemes are similar, so we're uh
Yes,
we're
they
we're in sync on that. And
are. Hmm.
and it looks like you're an angel in outer space. This is going to be fun. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is great. The way I like to do my podcast here is tell our fans who are anxiously waiting more about you, and then we'll get into what you do and things like that. So, where are you coming from geographically?
I'm I'm actually in Western New York, right near Buffalo, outside of Rochester, New York, which is about 60 miles from Buffalo. It's right on Lake Ontario,
Oh,
and I live I live in a small village east of it called Fairport, right on the Erie Canal.
oh,
That's
nice.
where I'm coming from. Yeah,
You're almost in Canada.
almost, almost. You're
Yeah,
not too
very,
far.
very close. Yeah. Wonderful. Okay, Sheila. Let's talk about early years for you. Did you grow up in that area?
Well, yes and no. I was born here, but when I was born in Rochester, and when I was 3, we moved out to Tucson, Arizona, and I actually those that's where I had my childhood out west.
Okay.
I lived in Tucson until I was 9, so 6 years, and then from 9 to 12, we lived in Vegas.
Okay.
So my father was in the actual construction business. And then in the 60s, when I was 12, we moved back to Rochester. So I've been here ever since.
Oh
So
my
yeah,
goodness. Yeah.
yeah.
What was it like as a kid, moving to those places? Did you have culture shock as a kid, or do kids even experience that? I know we do as adults, but
Well, I that's all I knew because I was only 3 when I moved there. But I
right.
did have a culture shock when I went back to visit years later. My mom actually moved back out there in the 80s, and I went to visit, and it was a culture shock because I was so used to the East and then coming back to the West. It is totally different,
It is.
totally different. But
I,
I
I,
would like to go there now, especially in Vegas, to see what it's like as an adult, to actually pull a slot machine as an adult. So,
well,
well, they don't pull them anymore, right? It's all buttons.
yeah, it's all buttons. I've been there, done that. It's not as exciting as it looks on TV. So,
I know.
yeah, but
Yeah.
I hear you because from North Carolina to Oregon was a culture shock. So it was
Ah.
quite different. And east to west, and a lot of people don't know how different it is because they've lived in one side of the country their whole life. And boy, I got out here in Oregon and I didn't think people were very polite. I'm a Southern girl. I say, yes, ma'am, yes, sir, blah, blah, blah. I was raised with manners. And I got out here, and honestly, nothing against you Oregonians, whoever's listening, but I didn't find it to be quite as hospitable out here.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. Well, a lot of people when I tell them I'm from New York, they always think it's New York City.
Oh, yeah.
And New York City is totally different than the rest of New York. And they call anywhere that's above the city upstate. And it's upstate is upstate by, by Canada and over where we are by Lake Ontario, which is upstate. But I live in the western part of upstate. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, complicated. Yeah, and I've been to New York City. I wasn't impressed, but
No.
some people love that lifestyle. I'm at the age now, it's gotta, love my quiet time. I love a quiet atmosphere. And the more I get into energy work, the more I don't like the loud and the boisterous and the busy. I don't care for that busy. Um,
Yeah, I get you. I get you. And I like being by nature. I have to have nature. So I'm a nature girl too. And what I love is living the canals right across the street from me.
oh,
So,
that's
which is great. So I was on the canal, yeah, walking or just bonding outside, and I love it.
yeah.
And I've lived here for about 10 years on this side, but I always was on the other side, in the western side, and I lived by Lake Ontario, about 2 miles from the lake.
Oh, nice.
So,
Nice.
yeah.
Now, when you were in the early years, like teenager and that kind of thing, and you were obviously very comfortable in the area you're in, but what kind of what did you do when did you go to college and then did you go, well, gosh, you're a reverend. I think you're a doctor too, aren't you?
No, I'm a reverend. I'm a reverend,
Okay. All
but
right. Well,
I'm a metaphysician. I'm a
oh, yeah.
metaphysician. Yeah.
Okay. So let's tell our audience what that is.
Well, metaphysician is someone that deals with energy,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm an energy healer, energy metaphysician, and I teach and I do sessions and I do counseling, I do spiritual counseling, anything to do with your evolution as a soul. And metaphysician is about the energy above, the energy in the field around you,
Mm-hmm.
and your physical body all the way up to the outside. I also can communicate with angels. And so I've been able to communicate with angels since I was born. I was born hard of hearing, by the way.
Oh
I
my
wear hearing aids.
goodness.
Yeah. And I never got my first pair of hearing aids until I was uh, almost 40 in the 90s, in 1990s, when I went to nursing school. I always read lips. And it was in my family. And four out of us girls that were my father's all had it, and it's hereditary. It's through my father's side because all of his relatives, his father came from Scotland and England, and the rest of them went to Australia, and it's all through the Australian line.
Oh,
And my oldest son also has it's nerve ending damage. I was born with it.
goodness.
So being able to hear angels, I couldn't hear people, but it allowed me to advance and to use my other clairs that I had, my other abilities, senses, and that's where the angels come in.
Oh,
However, I never started using my abilities until about 41 to 42 years ago.
mm.
And I come from a big CIA, Catholic, Irish, and alcoholic family.
Eh,
The CIA, yeah, Catholic, Irish, and
that's,
alcoholic. So
that's
um, both my parents were alcoholics and
oh,
functioning alcoholics. And I was number six out of eight kids. And I've had tragedy all my life. My father died when I was 15.
mm.
And that kind of changed direction of my life because I always wanted to be a nurse midwife. And it kind of changed how things were. My father died of lung cancer,
Mm.
and he was only 48 years old when he died, and his body was ravaged with alcoholism, heart disease, and of course lung cancer. So it has been such a gift in that way as far as my abilities to be able to connect with source and to feel things and see things that wasn't there. So through the years, I've always been able to communicate with all my loved ones as they have passed. And matter of fact, I'm the only one left as of two
Goodness.
years ago out
That's
of 10.
pretty.
Mhm.
When
Yeah.
you were really when you first started hearing angels, you said you were how old?
Well, I was born with it. I
Oh,
always
what
knew
was
the
it like?
angels.
I mean, that is I've never talked to anybody who actually heard angels as a baby. I mean, some of us may be hearing, but we don't know what we're hearing. So,
Hmm.
I mean, Really, I mean, some of us hear voices, but we don't necessarily understand what it is. What was that like? I mean, what can you delve into that? Because this is really fun to know.
Yeah, it was very comforting because, as I said, it was pretty traumatized, very stressful in my home life, both my parents being alcoholics. But I had to do a lot of healing from that,
Mm,
and it now is my strongest gift because I went through it, and the comforting of the angels were always there.
yeah.
That is, well, I look back now, is that they were always with me, and that was really the comfort that I had. And of course, I just thought it was natural to be able to hear and see things other people. However, the nuns didn't think so. So I was, I was shamed when I was a child. Yeah, as I said, CIA, Catholic, Irish, and Alcoholic. Um, we all went to Catholic schools, and I would tell them, I've seen the angels, and they told me that I couldn't. They shamed me, and that only the priest and God can. And
Oh,
I could have a guardian angel, but I couldn't have, it was blasphemy. So I hid in shame, and of course survival. When you live in that type of environment, you learn how to survive. However, that really set the tone for the rest of my experiences going
mm,
forward, and it also helped me become aware of more things and be able to communicate with them more and be comforted by them, by the angels and my loved ones.
oh,
And as things and I have grown, it has grown. Everything has grown.
I'm sure that is fascinating, and I'm sure it was comforting. So, as you grew as a child, did you have conversations with the angels, not just hear them? Did
Oh, all the time, all the time. They would comfort me, and also what I know now is that it was more than the angels. What I do now, I'm a channel. I channel the galactic star mothers
Mhm.
who are metaphysical. It's in the energy, and they are the star mothers. And why I said that as a child, it was comforting. I would feel them around me, and I also would play with a friend, my girlfriend and I, and we would talk light language, and we would talk gibberish and talk about the stars and stuff. I didn't know back then, but
Wow.
I know now who it was. It was me as a star mother, and in other lifetimes in connecting with my ancestors and who I really was, a star being.
You were
So,
definitely being prepared for what you do now. You went
mhm,
into nursing, you said that was after high school. You went into nursing. What kind of
mhm,
nursing?
mhm.
What-
Well, first of all, I wanted to be a nurse midwife,
what-
but when my father passed when I was 15, it changed the course,
mhm.
and I changed my major to business, and I married my high school sweetheart when I was 19. So it changed everything. I got married because that's what you did in the 70s.
Right.
You got married. However, we did what we were taught to do. However, I wasn't happy. I did have two boys right away. I was it took me 5 months of being married before I got pregnant, but I had my son 14 months after we got married, and then about a year and a half, almost 2 years later, I had my second son. But there was a lot of problems. I wasn't happy. And, we did what we did. We took care of family, and, we played the rural roles as mother and father, and we were both workaholics. All right. So, and through all that, a lot of life lessons came out, but also the trauma. I married into what I knew. So, but the angels were always there for me. They always comforted me. And, both my boys were brought up Catholic. But when, uh, when my oldest was 9 and the other one was 7, uh, I was pregnant for my daughter. So I had my daughter, yeah. And so she was many years later. However, things still weren't right. And it wasn't until many, many years later we divorced, and my life has evolved since then, but it always was with the actual divine. I always had the communication. And it was my galactic family who gave me the strength to do what I had to do. I had to grow. And I actually got into recovery for codependency in 1985. And that was really the downfall of the
Oh,
marriage. Even though I had my daughter in 87, 86, and it was 8 years in Al-Anon, working my own program, getting all the books and, going to meetings. But my actual husband and I, we drank together. That's what we did. And so it was part of our routine. However, I knew something wasn't right, and I always said I was never going to be like my parents. Don't we
mm,
all say that?
I did.
Well, guess what? um, my worst nightmare became actually my biggest strength. But it was 20 years in the making of being in denial that I was like my mother and my father, even though I didn't drink every day like they did. And it's not about how much you drink, it is the reasons why you drink.
Right.
So the childhood and the survival was about surviving during that time. And so I had to start healing myself. And when I got into AA for alcoholism in 93, that was the turning point as far as I'm going to stand in my own worth. And then I decided to go to nursing school to be a nurse midwife.
Oh, back then. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
More
Yeah.
recent.
However, it didn't happen. I had 3 years in for my bachelor's, and I had an accident where I hurt my leg, the hamstrings. However, that was my journey of holistic work and working on myself. So the recovery stuff from codependency and alcoholism started my journey of the spiritual side
Hmm.
of a higher power. And and I was very religious back then. I was a church secretary, and I used to do Bible studies and all this stuff, and it really helped me because in Al-Anon it's about your relationship with anyone else, whether it's mental illness or whether it's alcoholism, but it's keeping the focus on yourself. So it was a way of me opening up and looking at things that I needed to change in myself, even though it took many years before I got into AA. But it was a spiritual program, so I was very comfortable with that. But when I got into AA, I had to break away from the church, and because I needed to focus on myself, and it was my children that were the catalyst for me getting sober. And it was, of course, very hard on the relationship because he was my drinking partner and I no longer could drink. So the whole relationship, fell apart, and it wasn't good to begin with. We were both alcoholics and workaholics. We didn't really have a foundation of a healthy relationship from the way that we were brought up. So I knew something was wrong, and I always went inside, and they were there to help me, the angels, and brought people forward, helped me understand what was going on. Physically, I started healing my body, and it wasn't until the 2000s when I actually divorced. My daughter was already 18, and it was her choice to stay there.
Hmm.
And that's kind of where things really progressed. So I was able to step into the spiritual side and develop my abilities. Then I went to mediumship school. Um, and I also, before mediumship school, I went back to in the healthcare and was trained as a phlebotomist. And phlebotomist is one that draws the blood.
Hmm.
And I worked at a major hospital, and I was 8 years in the department, phlebotomy, and then I was actually recruited by the nursing department to come on the expert top team for drawing blood for very, very sick people who had ports and PICC lines and, very sick people because they needed somebody that was an expert on getting blood for infections and stuff. So I was called, who are you going to call? Sheila, the bloodsucker. So
Oh,
I
yeah.
was a top bloodsucker in the hospital and taught. And
Oh my.
um, yeah. And at the same time, I was already doing this metaphysical work, and when I actually divorced, I was able to spend more time on my metaphysical work and got into more healing. And I actually started in a healing modality called integrated energy
Mm.
therapy, which is a quantum energy with angels, with angels. So it was all part of my path, who I was and why I was really here to step into my power.
Right.
And yeah, so I was with a major hospital here in Rochester until 2017. And I was already doing energy work as a healer, but also teaching. So I was a master healer. And then I was invited to be a trainer. So um, I still did healing work around the country, along with working full time at the hospital. And then in 2017, I said, I've had enough. And then I went back to school and got a bachelor's in metaphysics, and from the University of Sedona and the University of Metaphysics. And then at the same time, I also have am certified, licensed certified for being a heart math coach,
Right.
which is about healing, changing the chemistry inside, and dealing with stress and trauma. So all the work I did in recovery was about my own healing
Mm-hmm.
and the dynamics of the body, mind, and spirit, not just the body, and started healing. So, shall I go on?
Oh, well, it really
Yeah.
is all about that's where we usually find our path is through our own healing, whatever that might be, and our recovery of whatever that might be. For everybody's different. So in on your path, how did the reverend part come in? Because really, I was raised in the church and I've only been out away from that for a few years. And the reverend kind of doesn't speak to me the same way as well,
Well, that is, that is the linear way of thinking of it. Society, how we think of a reverend, we think of religion.
right.
Well, metaphysics is spiritual.
Yes.
Recovery is spiritual. And it's, what most people know when you say you're in recovery, they think of addictions, which it is, but there's more than just addictions. It is your life choices that you make and how it affects your body, how it affects your whole life. And as I said, I was brought up in the environment during the 70s, and you got married right out of high school and you started having kids and that. However, I knew there was more to me than just being a housewife and a mother, which I loved it. But it was like, remember, I wanted to be a nurse midwife. And through my children also was in livestock. My ex-husband was, from the country. We lived in the country. And I birthed a lot of livestock,
Oh,
but
wow.
I always wanted humans. And, the earth was very important to me. Being out in the country was very important. And when I finally got into recovery, it's like, I need to do this for me. And it was the angels behind me that was helping me and showing me the spiritual stuff. So there was a lot of spiritual dates and things that happened that lined everything up when I look back at it now. And just like when I teach two modalities. They're quantum energies. So it's different than Reiki, which I'm also Reiki master. But it is, yeah, but it's the energy that's different. It's the spiritual connection of your soul and
Mm.
who you really are. And so through that, when I do teach classes, quantum classes, I always talk about stories, and it's always about healing inside yourself first, because we have to be that light for somebody else. We have to, put the lighthouse inside on before we can help. And that's really about what ministry is all about, being that light for
Mm.
somebody. And as a reverend, is that with my degree, I was also ordained reverend. with my degree, to be able to do the spiritual side, the counseling and the energy behind prayer and going with inside God, and of course, it was the Star Mothers and my connection to the divine, who
So
we really are.
having been raised myself as a preacher's kid and staying in that um world for so long, I'm wondering, and it's been quite a journey of healing just to get away from a lot. I'm sure I'm not done on that journey because I was in
Hmm.
it for so long and now I'm really away from it, but things keep popping up. I'm going, oh, that's still there. Okay. Well, but I'm curious, having been raised in the Catholic Church, and I know you had the parents with problems, but you were raised in the Catholic Church, you went to Catholic school, and breaking away from that, how have you walked through that healing from religion to the spiritual world where is more real than what we see? But I'm curious what that journey was like for, because so many people are waking up out of the religion now. What was that like for you to break free from that? Because it's not an easy thing to walk away from and break free from.
No, no. It was when I had my children, and when I walked away from the Catholic Church, I went into the Lutheran Church. And I like Lutheran because it was very close to Catholicism. And my ex-husband was Lutheran, even though he had no training at all. But that's a whole nother story. But
Okay.
it was about your connection with God. It was always about God and who we really are as souls. So the angel connection was always there with me, but I always knew there was more,
Hmm.
and there was a narrative, and just like when I was shamed, that I couldn't talk to angels, which I knew I could. So that was programmed into me, and that was how a lot of the religions are. It's dogma. It's this is what you do, and it's about you not being worthy enough or good enough. And so it's like, not my God, not my God. And so it's about waking up and saying, no, that's not how I feel inside, and I feel loved and helped, and I experienced it.
Mm.
So, and then I also experienced, you know the things that people go to church all the time and they're not very spiritual on the outside, and it's like, and it's the show, it's the way of society is, you do this or this is what's going to happen,
Oh
and
boy.
this is going to happen. Yeah, it's like, wait a minute, I'm a good person, doesn't mean I'm, going to hell. And it's like, so it was all programmed. It was all, and that's the old energy or frequency that was here. And that's what's changing now. And I'm also a new energy educator,
I love it.
being a metaphysician and a healer. I help people get unstuck from whatever is stopping them from living their magnificence.
Yes. Okay.
All
Okay.
right. So when you put all those pieces together, it's just not one thing or the other.
Right.
It is putting the whole pieces a puzzle together to see the whole tapestry of your life. Who are you?
Yeah. Yep. That's
And Janice, it wasn't until about 7 or 8 years ago that I remembered this memory. We were in Tucson still, so I must have been about 6. And I was in the car with my mother, and I was the only child out of a big old Woody station wagon. And all of a sudden, yeah, the only child out of 8. And I said, Mommy, 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 why are we here? Where do we come from?
mm,
She pulled the car over, turned it off, and turned around and looked at me, and she said, Honey, I don't know. But my soul knew. And
mm,
I never remembered that until about 7 or 8 years ago, when it was time for me to remember. For it was the time for me to put all those pieces together for myself. And when I do classes and teach, I always go back to stories and go back to the heart relating to somebody,
mm-hmm.
because it's about being real, not being phony.
Right.
When I hurt, you see, I'm hurt,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and I need help, and I am very very grateful for those that help me.
Yeah.
And that's where my role is to send that help back out because I went through it, so I know it.
Right.
And because we've all been there where you're supposed to be in the religion, and you see things on the outside. It's like they're not walking the walk.
Oh no.
They're saying one thing, but they're telling us, mm.
Mhm.
And so it's like, no. And so that's where the trust goes inside. When you see all that duality. In other words, they say one thing and they do the other.
Yes, I
And
grew
it's
up with
like,
a
wait a
front
minute,
row
something's
seat.
not.
I grew up with a front row seat to hypocrisy. So, I mean, being a
Oh,
preacher's,
I like that one.
yeah, I had a front row seat. I saw my dad one way when he was out with people and in the church, and another way at home, and gone through a lot
Oh,
of
yeah.
forgiveness. Yeah, but you know, I don't know. My mother, I do not know how she survived that marriage and raising four of us. I don't. And she was she was a character, but she got away from church, just not into the stuff that well, you and I are talking about now. But and then when I got away from the church as a kid, I have one vivid memory, and that is being punished for skipping church one time. Um, so that left a lasting scar, and so I'm still kind of processing that punishment um for not going, and so I still that thought will come back anytime somebody asks me why don't you go to church. I do a knee-jerk reaction. It's like you don't need to know. It
Okay, so that's the defensiveness, right?
is absolutely.
No, the judgment, and it's like, and that's the old. Oh, there's my seat. Whenever I move, my screen goes around with me. Sorry about that.
That's all
I know. So that's the duality. That is also change. See how things are changing. And especially, the many 24 hours that I have. I was born in the 50s, so I'm in my 70s. So I've got many, many, many years of seeing things and many things coming to the light, and some things are pretty dark,
right.
as far as this is what you have to do or else. And it's like, no, 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 no,
No,
no.
I don't have to. Yeah, I know. And I remember you said when you started getting help, that's when your marriage started wobbling. Well, same with my last marriage too, because I learned about boundaries through my chiropractor because I was telling her what was going on in my marriage, which was like 2 or 3 years old at that time, and I think three. And she goes, "You don't have any boundaries." And I'm like, what do you mean? What are you talking about?" I was clueless. So she sent me to a friend of hers who became a friend of mine. And I went through her boundaries class 3 times. I'm a slow study. It took me three times through to understand boundaries. And I still occasionally, have issues with that. But when you don't have any for most of your life, you gotta, oh boy, I should have said no to that. Why did that person push my button? That kind of thing. And unless we take the time to really let spirit help us see, and it could be a childhood memory, it could be, whatever it was. But when I started learning about boundaries and saying no, things got really much uglier than they were in the marriage because some people won't take no.
Yeah, well, remember, it is, and what I always say to my clients and my students, when you're in a relationship, you all have roles. And when somebody steps out of that, the mobile gets unbalanced. And
Mhm,
so everyone around you is trying to get that balance back and trying to control you and tell you, manipulate you to go back because
mhm,
they don't want it unbalanced. Remember, those that you're in a relationship with are almost sicker than you, is because they are okay with a relationship.
mhm.
And, today is a totally different story as far as understanding that I chose that life.
Yep.
And that that's part of the growth as a soul for me. And today I have so much compassion and appreciation for my ex husband because my soul knew and I needed that relationship to learn the lessons to help me get to where I'm at now. Just like the angels and who they are, and they were always with me, but I had to go through that. And then through that, as a healer, and especially with integrated energy therapy, it's about the issues in your tissues. So it's the control and the judgment and the pain, and where did that come from? The manipulation, and trying to have boundaries, not, understanding that, is that they don't know what they don't know.
No, they don't. And so
And so that's where the compassion comes in, but you do have to take care of yourself. And then fast forward, especially in the last 20 years, I've been divorced 21 years. Yeah, almost, and it hasn't been until the last 2 or 3 years that things are really good now. And it's like, it was really rocky for a long time because still in the old relationship, in the old things that happened. And what I had to do was, first of all, heal myself. I had to go back and look at my part in it. And then, especially with my parents, it's like I didn't want to because I had so much anger and resentment. But I know now, and especially when they're all gone, is that my, strongest weakness, or my weakness became my strength.
mhm.
And now I can look at it and see the gratitude for it and see I'm so glad. And I have a better relationship with all of my family members in spirit than I did in lifetime.
Yeah, that's so good. Well, we're going to start to wrap up. So, Sheila, what would you like to leave as a parting word for our audience? And all of your information will be available at the end of the broadcast.
Thank you.
And and you can see to our audience, you can see her name's on there and her website's on there, as is mine. So we got to keep that visibility going. What are some parting words for our audience today?
That you are never alone and you are worthy and you're good enough. And you do have to take the action. And that's a lot of times people want to be rescued and be the victim. And it's like, no, you can be the victor. You can be magnificent and stand in your light. So if you're interested, I help people get unstuck. I also teach. I mentor a lot. And with this energy that's here now, a lot of people are so confused, especially with what they knew in the past and then what is happening now. But it's all good. And things are going to get better. And they are getting better,
They
even
are.
though it looks like they're falling apart. But they need to fall apart first before they can get better, rebuilt. And that's the same with you.
Yes.
If, as far as clients, is that you got to look at what is not working for you. And that's what I do because I do many, many things. But it's all individuality. And go to my website, book a clarity call, and we'll talk. It's a free 30-minute call. Um, and it's about what do you need. And a lot of people they don't even know what they need. They just know they need something. And
Mhm.
that's the energy that's here. That's God.
Yes.
Whatever you want to call it.
Yes.
So
Well, thank
you
you
are
for being
worthy.
my guest. Oh, yes. Fine. Good parting words. Thank you, Sheila. This has been great. And we've given our audience a lot to think about. So reach out to her. Her website's right there. And like I said, it'll be available at the end of the broadcast. So we will
Thank you.
see you next time, audience. And thank you for being my favorite fans.
Thank you. Bye bye now.
Bye bye.